Okay, this is take two. My apparently my phone ran out of space to hold more video, so I have to record it again. I believe I'm gonna call this video something like how to study a foreign language, and specifically I'm studying Russian at the moment, but I'm gonna talk about stuff that's relevant to any foreign language. And what inspired me is I was walking around at the park today. I'm not walking now, I'm sitting because it's a little bit awkward to record myself while walking with a whole bunch of people around. It's a beautiful day, so there's a lot of people at the park. And I just thought I would talk about this particular language study method that I use that I find to be very helpful. So I've been studying Russian for somewhere around 8 years, and this is a method that I've used early on, that I still use, and that I've also used to study many different foreign languages. So I've used it to study Russian, modern Greek, ancient Greek, as well as a handful of other languages that I can't remember all of them now. I think Turkish, Japanese, Chinese, French, German, and a couple others that I don't remember. So basically, the idea was inspired by Pimsleur. I really like their language study resources. In my opinion, they're the best ones for beginners. But they're really only good for beginners. They cover very basic material, and just as far as the amount of content, there really isn't that much. And to be honest, after a certain point, it's better to just make your own content, because the stuff that you will want to know is personal. So basically what I would do is I would put on my Pimsleur CD, their audio lessons, and I would walk around the park. I also used to do them some while driving, but it's a lot nicer when walking in the park. And basically, just a short, brief summary of how their lessons work is that typically they'll have a short little dialogue, say like 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And it's been a while since I've actually done the lessons, because I'm well past the beginner point at this point. But basically, if I remember right, they would introduce the dialogue in the beginning, and you would just listen to two people going back and forth, and then they would slowly break down for the 30-minute lesson the parts and the pieces, and they would typically they would say a phrase in English and have you speak it back in the target language, in Russian in this case. And then at the end, they would have you participate in the dialogue that they introduced in the beginning. So you would be one of the two characters, and the person would speak, and then you would respond, and then there'd be a delay for you to respond, and then the other person would speak again. That's basically how they worked, and I found them super helpful. They were relaxing to do, and but at the same time, I really got a lot out of them. So, plus the nice thing is, I basically live on a computer, so I try to avoid using the computer when I can, just because I use a computer probably like 50 hours a week. And so it's nice to learn. I gotta be about to sting me. So it's really nice to learn when there's when I'm not sitting in front of a computer, and when I get to get up and move around, get some exercise, and plus be somewhere, that's really beautiful. And I tend to learn better and focus more while I'm doing something. I tend to kind of zone out and get bored if I'm not physically active, so it really helps me as a learner. Now, to put my own spin on that, so I've used Pimsleur lessons, but I've also done my own variations of the same basic idea, where you use primarily audio and you work back and forth with key phrases. And what I've done in the past was I would write out these dialogues that were they took a great deal of effort, but to be honest, they would be like half a page written out. I think like half a page max if it's typed, and more like half a page handwritten usually. And I would write these out. I would send my dialogue. Usually I did dialogues too, because especially at that time, what I was really wanting to learn was conversational Russian. and that's what I wanted to focus around. It's what I found the easiest, it's what I found the most interesting, and it's what I was able to use, because then as I practiced these conversations, then I would go have real conversations on the internet with strangers usually. And so that was what I did. And it was nice because when I created the content, I could focus on vocabulary that I was interested in, scenarios that I was interested in, and also I could make sure that I was always building on what I already knew and just taking it slightly farther than what I was already comfortable with without studying, which is really important when you're learning a foreign language. And that's what makes it really hard, because that is so personal. What you know and what you don't know is very personal, and you always want to be building on just slightly more than what you already know. So anyways, I would write these out, I would send them to a native speaker, the native speaker would correct them and send them back, and sometimes I would also have the native speaker read the content somewhat slowly and send me an audio file. Otherwise, I would try to read the content myself and make the audio file that way. By now, I'm to the point where I'm comfortable just making an audio file myself. It just is easier. It'd be better to have somebody else do it, because I still make a lot of pronunciation mistakes, but it's just that much easier that I tend to just make it myself. And then I would just walk around the park and listen to these little dialogues or little tiny stories over and over and over again. And I found that it really helped. It really kind of helped cement things in, it helped things stick. And then sometimes what I would do is I would add a little question and answer session at the end. And these would be very basic type questions, like what you would get in a elementary school English class. So for example, oh, what character did this? Or what did the character think about this? Or why did the character do this? And that helped me in two ways, because it helped me with questions, which are a big important part of any language, but it also helped me interact with it a little bit and make sure that I was engaging, interacting, and speaking. And so obviously when I make these, I know the answer ahead of time, but if you make enough of them and if you extend it out over a long period of time, eventually you forget the answer that you made. So you actually have to pay attention to the content to get the answer. So that's the goal. So that's what I used to do. And lately what I've been doing is I really want to be able to, my end goal is to be able to make videos in Russian about either mathematics or physics or calculus, because those are things that interest me. And so what I've been doing to try to learn the vocabulary, to improve my use of the vocabulary properly, such through grammar, which is really hard actually with Russian numbers. So I've been making these audio files, and lately what I've been doing, because I'm very busy, I don't have a lot of time, and I've also been studying for a long time, so I have a pretty good understanding of the basics. I still make a lot of mistakes, but for the most part I know the basics. And so what I do is I just think of what I want to say in English. When I want to speak in Russian, I don't have to think in English first if I'm using content that I already know, but I find it very difficult to do that when I'm using content I don't know. I'm capable of using interlocutors and stuff like that. I think that's how you say it. But that's not what I want to do, right? I want to actually be able to speak relatively normal. And so what I do is I just think of what I want to say in English, throw it into Google Translate, run the speech thing to make sure I'm hitting the proper accents, and then speak it into, my phone has a built-in voice recorder. So I just hit record, I say what I wanted to say, then I leave a little pause so that it gives me time to process and to think, and then I'll do another phrase, hit record again, it just continues the recording, read my phrase, and then think of another thing that I want to say. And so I do this, and usually in the end I come up with something that's about 3 minutes to 5 minutes long, and I just listen to that, I play it while I'm sleeping, but I also listen to it while I'm walking in the park. And then I also have ones where I personally like translation, and I think that translation can be a stumbling block and a problem, but I think as long as you're keeping it around 50-50, 50% of your learning it involves translation, but no more than that, and then 50% of it involves actual interaction with native content without translation. I think that when you keep it down there in that 50% or less for the amount of translation that you do. I think translation can be a very powerful tool to help. If you do too much, you end up only thinking in the native language and just translating all the time. So obviously you don't want that, but I think the modern push seems to act like as if you ever use translation, you're going to only be able to translate, but that's not true. It's very much not. And a lot of people do use some translation in their language study. And so I think as long as you keep it to below, I would just making it up, below 50%, whatever certain threshold there is, this probably varies from person to person anyway, then I think you're okay. So yeah, so what I do then too, say I want to learn like a certain vocabulary word, like исчисление is the word for calculus. So I have a thing where I literally just read off lists of words. And the benefit to this, so flashcards are a little better because you can rearrange things, but the benefit to reading off the list is, one, it's a lot faster to produce because reading is a lot faster than writing. And two, it's you're working on the audio and spoken thing. And for me, I'm a visual learner. It's very easy for me to learn how to read and write something, but then to not be able to translate that over into speaking. And so if I learn it by speaking, that helps me quite a bit because that's the part that I'm going to struggle with. I can take what I already speak and translate it into writing, no problem. But if I go the other way, then I can find that I write very well but don't speak. My little bees follow me again. So yeah. So basically I just, I say like, I go both ways. I go through it once going from Russian to English. I only pick like 10 or 20 words. Then I go the other way from English to Russian. And so I'd say like, исчисление. Leave a little pause for me to respond calculus. And then have the voice recording say calculus after, 2 or 3 seconds. And then go back through the other way where I would say calculus. And then there'd be a pause and I would say исчисление. And then the recording would say исчисление. So... but then I don't just stop there, like you don't just do that. Then I have a little short thing after where I'm speaking about a topic in the language with no translation that uses the vocabulary that I just learned. And I find that if you just do this over and over again, it helps quite a bit. So basically, I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to say about that. Oh, the other thing is while I'm listening, so when I'm listening, it's really key how you listen. So when I listen to the recording that's just in Russian, but I speak a sentence, then I have a relatively long pause actually. It's sometimes like 4 or 5 seconds, and then I speak another sentence. During the time in between, I can do different things. I can repeat what I just heard, which is good for pronunciation. For me, it helps cement the sounds into my head because I'm really not much of a passive listener. I have very terrible passive listening skills, so it helps bring out that like more active listening. And the other thing is sometimes I'll try to step it up a notch. So say I had a sentence, I don't know if I can even think of one of the ones that I'm learning right now because I haven't put a lot of time into it yet, but say I wanted to say "Я был в Москве," and that probably wasn't a really good example, but we'll just go with it. So say I just said that phrase in Russian and then I have like a 5-second pause. Well, I can do a whole bunch of things in the in-between time to help my brain engage. So one thing I can do is practice using some grammatical form that was interesting in that. So в Москве has the prepositional case for Moskva. So I could try changing it up like "Я иду в Москву," where I try using a different case ending, which that was accusative in that case instead of prepositional. Or I could try playing with one of the words and really making sure I'm focusing on the meaning of the word. So like "Я был," "Я буду," "Я буду работать," and such. And I guess I'll stop because someone's pulling up. That's basically all I wanted to say anyway. So